honest to God, so I would tell people that I was on this side of the mirror. I would say, I'm right there. I'll be recording. Like while you go, if you need anything, just signal or whatever. They had to do this test for an hour. And every 5 minutes, I would have to write down like what they were doing. Honest to God, despite the fact that I had told them that they'd be sitting there, they would like three knuckles up, pick their nose. They would touch themselves. I mean, like and I would have to, and I wasn't allowed to do it. So I had to be like,
He's touching
237,
himself
like
again.
repositioning
I
again.
told you I was
Like,
here. And they're three
I
knuckles
know.
deep.
I was I wanted to be like, dude, tap, tap, tap. I'm right here.
Welcome to the Small Business Safari, where I help guide you to avoid those traps, pitfalls, and dangers that lurk when navigating the wild world of small business ownership. I'll share those gold nuggets of information and invite guests to help accelerate your ascent to that mountaintop of success. It's a jungle out there, and I want to help you traverse through the levels of owning your own business that can get you bogged down and distract you from hitting your own personal and professional goals. So strap in, adventure team, and let's take a ride through the safari and get you to the mountaintop.
Small Business Safari. We're back. We're rolling. We're going to go. But guess what I've been doing, Alan?
You've been going to school.
I went to pod school to learn to be a better podcaster. So, excuse me,
Did they
everybody.
tell
I
you to
just
not
want
talk
say
so
this.
much?
Huh?
Did they tell you to not
told
talk
me,
so much?
They told me not to make it so much about me. And I'm like, screw that. That's
the
not
whole,
why we
that's
do
the
this.
whole thing.
So
What's the point of it then?
let me get my pod voice ready to go. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Small Business Safari. Are you bored yet? I am. Let's go. Jodi Hume is joining us today. She's one of the OG leadership coaches. How many coaches have come out of the woodworks in the last 3 years? Well, how about since COVID? Probably 100 million like cockroaches.
Do you remember back in our chamber days, we go to networking and you'd meet somebody and they're a business coach, but then you find out like 30 days earlier they were delivering pizzas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that's Jodi.
No, that's not
You don't
Jodi.
deliver pizzas, do you, Jodi?
Not currently, no.
Okay, good.
Oh, there we go. And not 30 days ago.
And not 30 days ago. I did spend a summer in college selling meat off the back of a truck, but that's a whole other story.
There we go. Love it. We got Jodi Hume, who is your business leadership coach. I'm not going to do all the credentials that you're supposed to do. Go check her out, man. We'll talk more about her. We'll get into this stuff and start kicking it around a little bit. Jodi, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
All right, let's just jump right into what leadership coaching is. So it's a combination of one-on-one coaching. Do you do masterminds? Tell us a little bit about how you handle people.
I do a little bit of all that. I mean, I work primarily with business owners. And so I do still refer to it as leadership coaching just because then people have some idea of where to put it. But it is the work that I do now is a little bit some coaching, some consulting or advising, and a lot of what sort of gets close to business therapy, decision support, because entrepreneurs, they don't have problems every like second Tuesday or every third Wednesday or something. And so I just, over the many years of doing this, I found that what they needed was something more on call. Most of the time they know their business better than anyone, and they just need to kind of clear out their brain and get some kind of clarity so they can keep moving forward.
That's so nice the way you put that in, that she said it's so like nice and delicate.
Therapy.
That sometimes business owners need therapy.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Well, so
how
no,
about
so
on
here's
the
that
weekly,
this
the
is
daily, the hourly,
seriously,
minutely.
no, this is why I made it decision support, because the key so I'm a third generation entrepreneur. So the decisions and the bad decisions and the good decisions and the course correcting, like that is literally like the conversations that were around my table as a kid. And so it's just been in my blood forever. And the thing is, something I learned very early, even just watching my mom and whatnot, is sometimes people are indecisive because down deep, they know it's a bad idea. And that has like one kind of feel to it. Sometimes they're indecisive because down deep, they know it's a really good idea, but it's scary. And they've just got some hesitations you have to sort of peel through. Sometimes it is just like confusion. That's actually a little bit more rare, but sometimes it's not indecisiveness at all. It's actually just that they're exhausted and they need to take a nap because they couldn't decide between a hamburger and a cheeseburger. And so listening for what's actually going on, that's why I call the company At the Core. Like, what is at the core of this? What's the real issue? And that's always the first step. So you got to grab people when they're not sure what to do to keep them on course for their own path.
Well, I can promise you, Jody, you can't see me in person, but I've never had to make a decision on cheeseburger or hamburger, or never fell asleep.
just
So
get both. Just
yes.
both.
I'll
I
take
just go
both.
yes. I just go yes.
I'll have all the burgers, please.
I love that though. You're right. Decision support, because that's what we have to do every single day we wake up is small business
Thousands
owners,
of
right?
times a day, like
Yeah,
thousands of times.
Waking up going, all right, that's what I've done it. When I'm in a good mood, it's all right. We're going to solve some problems. And when I'm in a
And
bad mood, it's
there
all right.
aren't, and there's no
Solve some
limit to how
problems.
many decisions. Like there's always more you could be doing. There's always more you could be considering. It is really, if you don't have some way to kind of rein it in, it is just a massive suck. So
you've been doing this since 04, right?
yes, correct.
Yeah. I mean, well,
That's 20,
officially
20 years.
again, man,
2-0.
when you look back on it, like Alan said, I was still in corporate America when I met Alan in 8. We go to those chamber events, and it seemed like with the recession hit then,
Mhm.
and then everybody became a coach, and then COVID hit, and everybody became a coach.
And lots more people became a coach.
Right.
Yeah. So I was still with there's an 8-year overlap in my two things. So I was with the architecture firm that I was with as we grew that company for 16 years. And then I officially left and did only this since 2010. And so there's from 2003, 2004 until 2010, I was doing both of them. So I was still COO of the architecture firm. So I was right there with you in 2008. Not the most fun time in the world.
What kind of
and then I left.
architecture?
Yeah.
So yeah, we did cultural and
Yeah,
educational. So a lot of schools, not residential. So we did schools and colleges, theaters, visitor centers, that kind of stuff. I was not an architect. I did everything else. I took care of everything else besides being an architect. So I was
So how'd you get hooked into that gig? Because
So
I mean, you're the COO of an architecture firm. Number one, those guys are smart enough to figure out that they're probably really shitty businessmen, and they don't know how to do it.
So they weren't shitty businessmen. So what's interesting is I was hired as the receptionist right out of college because the government, I was working for a psychological research lab for the NIH right out of college, and the government paused. And so I was when they shut down the government because they couldn't balance the budget.
Government
So I got a job.
Psychological Research Lab. I think I need to hear more about
That sounds scary, doesn't it? No, it was super
It's like-
boring. It was
Oh, really?
super,
Man,
super,
dude, I had
super
So
Men-
boring.
that's the
mental
stock
image-
answer. That's what they say.
Right.
It's just boring.
No,
big deal.
I had mental images of mice, torture,
Yeah,
pigs.
monasteric goats.
No,
Yeah,
it's so much
and
worse
then you go in
than
the other
that.
room and go, don't look at that guy. He's in the corner going.
No, this is literally the definition of boring because it was my job to administer an attention test. Like it was how someone could pay attention.
You fail.
And that
What?
is actually designed to be boring. That's how they can actually test attention is
Oh,
the test
painful.
is boring. And so I was administering a boring test to people all day long and watching them behind a mirror. It was very, very, very boring.
Oh boy! So there's
Yeah.
reception gigs. All right. So how did you find these guys? You had to stop. So
I had to get a job in like 3 days. I thought they were a law firm. I just took the first decent paying job I could get. But this is the story. I think like so many people, you don't plan out. Most people don't know what they want to do with their lives. They stumble like opportunity to opportunity. I got hired as a receptionist. I thought I was going to go back to grad school. The marketing person quit and they gave me her job. I was the marketing director. I was 23 and I was the only person in the marketing department. So director of what? I don't know. And I'm really good at making things better. I am not your girl to like sustain the thing and do the same, like take tab, be stick and slide once it's made better. And so I just had a knack for that. So I took over marketing and then we hired somebody and took that over as we grew. And then I took over finance and then I took over office management and I was facilitating the leadership team meetings every Monday. And that is where from my 3rd month there, I was there as the marketing person. But as a friend of mine says, like what you're here on the planet to do is what you can't not do. And I was facilitating that before I even knew facilitation was a thing because they were talking past each other. So, and that was, they were thrilled to be architects and I was thrilled to like take on more new projects.
So to your point, they actually were really smart knowing that they had a weakness of that and they needed somebody to help them grow, to be in the business, helping them to grow it. Wow.
Many of my favorite leadership wisdom nuggets come from working there. They were really good at letting people do what they do best and not trying to force, not that you couldn't have weaknesses you need to improve upon, but they were very conscious of not trying to make someone into something that they're not. You know, it's like a car when it's out of alignment. You can pull to the left, but the minute you let go of the steering wheel, it's going to go right back to where however it's pulling. And so they were really good about really leaning into people's strengths. It's actually a term from architecture, highest and best use. That is one of the indicators you do for when you do National Park Service
We use that in
projects.
real estate too.
What's that
Do you
mean?
highest and best use?
Yeah, it's like you have the corner lot. What's the highest and best use? It's kind of our mantra.
Hmm.
You could put a liquor store there, or you could do something that actually improves the community.
Yeah, it's
I vote liquor store.
identifying.
Right, wrong. Was that the wrong answer?
A delivery liquor store
Yeah, with drones.
I like it.
with drones.
Drive-through.
So I got to ask this question. I am going to make an assumption here that architects are introverts, right? Most of them, I would think.
Ooh.
It's a different kind of leadership, which might
Oh, yeah,
have
that's
paved the
interesting.
way for you to you ended up being CEO of that company?
No, COO.
COO, from
COO.
from receptionist to COO.
Well, we were very small. There were like 8 of us when we started. There were about close to 50 when I left. I was there as we grew through all of that. And it was just a really exceptional company of knowing how to, like, they gave us leadership experiences even when we were young, like when I was made an associate, and they would bring us to the retreats that they did each year, and they would ask us like important questions, like they would give us exercises, like if we hit a hard, it's why we were really well prepared when 2008 came. Like we would do these exercises, like if the economy tanked, who are the 10, however many people we had, who are the the top 5 you would fight to keep, and who are the top, the bottom 5 that you would consider. And some years that was harder and easier than other years. And it wasn't about who the people were. It was about teaching us to think like one year they gave us the bonus pool dollars and said, if you guys, the 4 of you, were going to distribute it, how would you distribute it? And it was an interesting test because they took them out of it, but they had us, we were included in it. So it was an interesting test to see how we would handle, like, if we had the bonus pool, would we give most of it to ourselves? Would we give a little bit to ourselves? And then also, who did we value? That was sometimes different people than they valued. Training how to think.
Yeah, you sound funny all of a sudden.
Did I sound, am I better back now?
I think so.
Whoa, my God. I know I have a great point. All right. You just proved
really?
Alan's point. These guys had to be introverts because you must have been rolling over these people, man.
Well, they need somebody like her to come in and lead them and connect the dots.
Yeah,
and then
I think
let
so.
them do their
I
job.
would-
Or a different personality
they were
in the room,
split.
right?
They were split. Oh no. Architects are often big personalities. Some of them are introverts and quiet. I would say it's about a 50-50 split. There's always, you wouldn't have a company if you didn't have at least one person who liked to be the person who went out and shook the hands, that has a little bit of that politician vibe. You have to have a personality, at least one. And you have to have somebody who is a confident, decisive decision maker. Without those 2 things, you can have a company, but it's gonna grapple to grow.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Wow. That's man, it's fascinating. All right. So we're talking architecture. You're doing the COO thing, and then you start realizing, hey, maybe I'm doing this coaching thing. You did some of these. So as it grew, what was harder, going from 8 to 20 or from 20 to 50?
At the firm?
Yeah.
Oh, 8 to, well, so I would maybe split it slightly differently. We were stuck at 18 forever. It was like 17 to 18. We floated there and just couldn't like make the hump over. And I honestly think over the years of all the companies I have my fingers into now, there are these patches, and one of them is like 18 to 22 people, I'd call it, that I think of as business puberty. There are these places where like you're awkward, you're like, it's like your arms are too long, you're tripping over yourself. Like it's just, there are these places where things have to change, like where you start to have procedures documented instead of everybody just knowing. There's all these just like weird patches, and that was a tough one for us to get over. Once we got over that, we went from like 25 to 35 like faster than we could blink an eye. Like we had moved into a new office that we had made space for new people, and we filled that up, and I had to find us a secondary office close by and figure out a way to connect the networks and whatnot. Like we outgrew our space in a heartbeat. And so that was really the tough space. We went from like 15 to 17 back and forth for ages.
Right. So that's why I asked because I felt the same thing, is that when you're at that 18 to 20, now I'm at 35, and we're at a good spot. I really the only way I grow now is by other units. So that's why I just wondered. People always
It's
ask
kind of
me
the
that.
fishbowl thing, don't you think? At that number, I mean, it
At 35?
no, at you're 18,
Oh,
because
yeah.
whoever's the leader knows everything that's going on and everything funnels through that leader. But to take that next step, you have to start trusting other people and there's going to be things going on in your business that you're not even really aware of until you have a
Yes.
staff meeting.
Yes.
And at that
And
point, you may need an HR person, and there's just that kind of stuff that
yeah.
requires the CEO to let go a little bit.
Well, there are a number of those places, and I think it happens. It's hardest to get your first one or two employee.
Thank you.
And
We have
and
a little
each of those-
ongoing competition, and he made a good point, and I agreed.
Oh,
to
is
it.
that? Do you touch
to-
your nose when someone
Yeah.
makes a good point?
No,
Oh,
I
okay.
had to fish for it.
All
I
right.
mean,
Oh, fine, you got one. All right, fine.
Thing.
Did she answer the question?
Sure.
All right, thank you.
Oh, good. No. There are a number of those places where there are like more letting go or more shifting. And without fail, every time I've seen someone try and let go, there is, and this happens with everything, but very specifically this issue. You usually like overshoot and you're like, oops, now I've over let go, and like things slip through the cracks.
Mhm.
And then you have to come back again. And then you're a little too in it again. And then it's
So
this.
you
I
can't
heard
see this on the podcast, but she's doing like
I'm waving
from
my
10
hand.
to 2, 10 to 2. But when Chris lets go, he lets go to 10. And the minute he
Yeah.
thinks something slipped through the cracks, he's all the way over hardcore 6, baby. Like, what in the
Yeah.
hell is going on? I can't believe I let you do this, and now look what happened.
If not one, like
They overact.
A little bit.
But yeah,
Well,
I know what you're talking about. It's that
Yep.
pendulum. Yeah.
it is a pendulum, and but I think everything in business is like that. It's business is improv. There's no script. Like it's a constant course correction. You can't possibly. Everyone is always wishing they know what the right answer is, but there's so few places where there even is a right answer. You just have to be reasonably certain it's not the wrong answer. That's the much bigger tool to use. As long as it is not a glaringly wrong answer, then move a chess piece and the whole game will change, and then you can make another adjustment shortly thereafter.
All right, let's pivot and talk about your business, not necessarily
Okay.
what you do in your business, but as you were working with the firm and growing your coaching practice, when did you make the cut, and why did you make the cut to go full on in your business?
Yeah, so I made the cut in part because I got a really large corporate contract, which was wonderful because that's how I learned that I do not want to do really large corporate contracts. It was awful.
We always have to
it-
learn things the hard way, don't we?
It's never easy.
No.
And it
I
usually
don't-
costs us money. Well, me.
So there's some neuroscience to that, actually. Your brain needs contrast to actually like the bigger the contrast, the more it actually learns. So like subtle little shifts in stimulus, your brain doesn't kick in like I need to learn a thing. So it's
That's like why the world needs assholes, so we appreciate the good people.
That's why I'm here, baby.
I know.
Huh? That's why I'm
definite
here.
truth to that.
Hey, I love
Definite truth to
that.
that.
I'm writing that down. The more contrast, the better you learn.
Yep. I know it's a
I've been
it's
in
a
the
sad
deep,
fact.
Dark's hell.
Yeah.
Hell.
Not everything has to be at an 11.
It was really hard for me to leave though, because I had such a like not just an emotional connection. Like I helped grow that firm. Like I still say we when I talk about it. It
Yeah, it's
still
in your
feels
DNA,
like
yeah. I
It's
mean,
in my DNA. Like
Yeah.
we built it with our bare hands, kind of a thing. And so it was really hard to leave, but I knew the work wasn't for me anymore. I remember fantasizing that I could like come sit in my desk and see all the same people every day, but do this business like from that office. I knew the work was the gum had lost its flavor and I needed to move on. So
Nice. The gum has lost its flavor. Yeah. All right. So you got this big corporate contract and you went, okay, I can't do both. So you said, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to leave, but you're like, but I got this big cherry sitting there. So it's not really
it was
scary.
fine. Yeah. I can't. It was, yeah. I mean, it was scary to not be in that firm anymore, but doing this work was not scary. That contract was awful. I actually canceled it in the middle of it for the company was being acquired by a larger company, and they wanted me to go around and talk to all these leaders. And every place I went, every office they thought I was the person who was coming in to decide who stays and who goes. And no matter what and it was like, we can't do this right now. This is
Right.
this is not going to work. This is not what you need. So we canceled that. And it was, I'll tell you, for that first year or two, being totally out, it was because I'm not a big fan of like, if you build it, they will come, like just quitting your job and starting a thing. I think creating a ramp for yourself can be really useful for some it works. The leaping works for some people, but for a lot of people, it shuts them down because they're in a panic mode. So I built it up. But
to refresh everybody's memory on what I did.
did
Full on
you
flip
leap?
and leap. Oh yeah.
Yeah. No,
Left a huge
if
six-figure
this was a
job and
game
said, I was a
show,
handyman on Monday.
yep. No, if this was a game show, I would have made that bet. Like, I bet you just quit on a.
I did. I said I went all the way in, man. But
Some
you're
people
right. I love
need that. Some people need what's the Viking thing? Like burn the boats. Like 'cause
Yeah.
then you have to, like, some people need the boats burned or else they would trickle back. I knew I didn't. So I built it as much as I could, but it is almost impossible to get a thing, especially if it's a service thing that requires your time, like as opposed to a business that doesn't. For me, I was nowhere near my salary and that I was making at the architecture firm that first couple years. And that was a hard pill to swallow. Like, I did not think I was as attached to it wasn't about the dollars, but just like my contribution to the family, or, since even high school, I was, making money that I could support all my own things. And it was a little tricky that first couple years, but there were.
Jodi likes the Benjamins.
I know it. That's what I heard, man. Jodi says, "Pay me the cash, show me the green."
She's all about the dollars.
Everybody
who knows me knows them all about
the
dollars.
cabbage, the cash, the roll. You know what I'm saying?
No.
No.
Well, what's funny about that is one of my lessons I learned early on was that I have to put goals in terms of something besides revenue for it to kick my engine into gear. So I have to think of it as like vacations, like the dollars, just raw dollars, just slip through the cracks in my brain.
It's like casino chips, right? There's other things that punch your buttons.
There's other things. And so like, it's like a vacation we can take, or like we could do this, whatever it is. If I thought of it that way, I'd be like all over it. But there was something I was going to forget what the other thing was. I had another point, but I don't know what it was.
Do you have a niche?
Don't worry. We
people?
create ADHD in people. And that's one of the things. We're really good at that. If you didn't have it before, by the time you're done with this podcast, you're going to have it.
You're going to be sucking your thumb.
Have it in spades. Yeah.
Do you have a target market for your coaching? Is it a particular kind of industry?
So a good portion of my clients are startup founders, so tech startups. The rest of them are business owners, usually service providers of some kind, either professional services or like home building services. I have a roofer client and HVAC client, and most of the people I work with, even the tech startups, are doing something different with their company. So they're doing, I have a client who, part of it is a traditional like nanny placement firm, but she also has this backup childcare side that she has created for people who so she has her own like posse of nannies that work for her. And like, say you wake up and it's a snow day, or your kid is like a little bit sick, too sick to go to school, but not really, really sick. And you can't take them to childcare. If you're one of her clients, you can hop on and get somebody like in an hour, as soon as just as far as their travel, so that you don't have to figure out who stays home from work or whatever. And so like, that's this, like, I love working with people who are trying to figure out something that hasn't quite been done before. Like, it's the heightened uncertainty that makes them an even better
That's cool
client for me.
Yeah. All right. So is it mostly local clients? Are you
no, there's a good portion of my clients I've never met.
Where are you?
I'm in Baltimore.
Oh,
that's a very personal question.
Where
are you?
Crab cakes. I'm in my basement.
Crab cakes.
I'm in my basement. Yeah. We're just two dudes in the basement drinking, talking.
Not concerning at all.
That's what some of our commenters.
Did you consider that as the original name of the podcast? Two dudes in a basement.
Two dudes in a basement drinking.
Well, all right. So I begged Ellen to do this because we'd get together for beers like once a quarter, and we are really smart, especially after like 8 beers at the bar.
So
Absolutely.
They're like, oh my God, we're solving the world problem.
Funny.
Oh my God, everybody, chicks dig us, guys want to be us. We were so cool. So we tried to figure out a way to call it that, but I came up with the Small Business Safari only because I wrote a book.
Oh, we haven't mentioned your book in a while.
Wow.
Did you write a book? I heard someone wrote a book.
Oh, that's right. Everybody, Jodi, she's good at this. Huh? Follow her lead a little bit more, right?
Yeah. Huh.
But
so wait, who podcast proposed to who?
I podcast proposed to Alan, and he said, "What's in it for me?" And I said, "Well, I'll feed you beer." And he went, "Okay." And guess what? He had to bring the beer.
I had to bring my own beer. I'm not a smart man.
Wow,
we've been doing it for 2 years now. And
good for you.
I just had somebody, well, actually through this podcast class that I went to, I reflected on it, and then somebody just walked in my office and they said, "What did you want to get out of this podcast?" I said, "I wanted fame and wealth," and I got none of it. They go, "What did you learn anything?" One of my employees asked me that. I said, actually, it's helped me run this business better. In fact, you should thank God right now that I'm doing the podcast because this saved your ass at least twice. he started going, "I believe it."
Yeah.
I
Thank you,
mean,
podcast.
we
Thank you,
get
podcast.
it would just be a good second book, all the gold nuggets that we've gotten from our guests. I mean, it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
been a wealth of information.
Yeah, I know.
Especially
I've
since
already
people
written down three.
like, the attention span of people, it's sort of like, this the TikTok-ness of like, you've got 60 seconds, you've got 30 seconds. So little nuggets are easier to read.
Is Jodi still talking? Not kidding.
So I have a question for you.
Where'd I go?
When somebody hires you,
Mhm.
is there a difference between what they think they need and what they really need?
Oh, when they hire me and almost every time they call.
Okay.
Like 100% of the time.
No. I'm being a little bit silly about that, but no, that is a big portion of why
was going to say
they
it was a good
call.
question. Anyway, go ahead. It's a big.
No,
they don't know what they need.
So here's the thing. I mean, just think of any time where you are just like spinning your wheels or stuck in a thing. You've been having the same question and you're like, or how many times in business do you just know something is off, but you can't tell what it is? You're like, is it this? Is it that? Is it this? Like decision fatigue is real. You can get like your brain gets tired. It runs in a very specific way. And when it gets run down, which is very easy to do, it doesn't function as well. And it's very hard this is true for anyone, but I feel like it's doubly true for business owners. You have not only so many things you have to hold in your brain, but so many different, it's not even a 3-dimensional thing. It's like a 9-dimensional thing because you have to think far out to plan strategically, but you also have to look right in front of you. You have to think about the numbers and the like bottom line, but you also, whether you want to or not, have to think about the people. They're not machines that you have to think about how it's working for them. And there's just all these things that it's so many variables. It can get really hard to see clearly. And it's like, I take a lot of pride in my parallel parking skills, but if you get in a vehicle that you've never been in before and you're not sure exactly how far, how much does that bend, how much car is left over there, it's just so different, like being inside of a thing versus watching someone else parallel park a car.
Right.
And
that's a great point. The perspective you bring is you're watching them parallel park and they're not
Yep.
doing it, or maybe they're doing well. Oh, you did that well. But when you're in the middle of it, you're like, I gotta get this thing in. I don't want to hit anything.
Right. But what they don't
next thing you know,
need,
you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna just leave. I'm gonna go find another place to park.
but here's my beef
That's
with
me,
like,
by the way.
here's my beef with like consultants and a lot of coaches, depending on their model, and advisors, is they will start telling you what to do versus just giving you the perspective from out here so that you can sort it out yourself. Because it's kind of almost like with parenting where like nobody knows your kids as well as you do. You know them better than anybody. And the same is true with businesses. Like there are times people maybe need to be told something or taught something or improved in some way, but a great deal of the time they just need to like get the clarity inside. Like they already know, and you have to just clear out the clutter so that they can see it. And once you do that, then they know what they need to do and they can just keep going. And so it's just like being like, oh, I think you have plenty of room back there. Just go for it. And then they can parallel park on their own.
It really is therapy.
Oh, it's
Like
100%.
And how does that make you feel?
Yeah, she's doing it the whole time, man.
No.
In fact, I'm already doing that right now.
I'm way too snarky to be a therapist.
Oh,
It would
well,
never
yeah,
happen.
no, but seriously, no, you're doing the right. Like I said, that's the right stuff because you're right. There are nights when I come home and I love to cook, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing it. I mean, just next thing you know, piece of bread, some cheese, some salami, done.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
I'm just plopping on the couch going, I'm gonna watch TV mindlessly. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I'm just tired.
So I won't bore you with all the neuroscience on this, but like the prefrontal cortex of your brain, which is the part that's like nuanced thinking, impulse control, decision making, strategizing, all the executive function lives up here, and it uses the most glucose or brain fuel. And what happens is, and you know this in your world, because in the morning you're like, I'm going to eat all the right things today and drink water, and I'm going to like blah blah blah, blah whatever.
I'm
then
not going to have a bourbon tonight.
Right. And then at 7
There's
p.m.
glucose
like
in bourbon.
sleeve of Girl Scout cookies. And and that is because that
Sleep
front
in,
part
it's
of your
the whole box.
brain, Exactly. Well,
The
especially if
boxes
it's
are
the
getting
coconut ones.
smaller.
The
Oh,
coconut
right. Oh,
ones.
don't
The
get me
mullet.
started.
That's one sitting. I'm like,
Oh.
pop, 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 pop.
I pop those suckers like Thin Mints. You're supposed to.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Well,
I
that's why you
pop those
can't
things like the
reclose it.
fat kid going down on the seesaw.
My theory is that one. That's why they just have the like one open thing that you can't like twist shut again, because like you're going to take it out, you're going to eat them all, and then
Right.
the box goes away.
All right, so back to,
yeah.
but you're right.
So
we
the
have the
neuroscience.
most. We have the most emotional stability. Is that what you're saying? The most.
It's not even
controlled-
emotional stability. I'm just talking like everything that your brain needs to be able to do, and impulse control is one of them. So decisions and impulse control, the half-life of the glucose. And here's the thing you can help about this. Your brain's not made to marathon throughout the day. It's made to sprint in like bursts. So like the studies they've done, like maximum of 60 to 90 minutes, just take any kind of break. It doesn't have to be a nap. It does, like, you could just go walk around the room or the house or anything, just creating some, I think of it as like punctuation, some kind of punctuation. This does not include picking up your phone and playing. You need the sensory disconnect for just like 3 minutes even.
That's a huge point. I've heard this before, and I would say I practice this as well. It's the no shit, even though I'm ADD, but I will tackle a subject, and if I can't get through it, I'm like, all right, I'm done. I'm gonna go take a walk around the building, and I do a little walkabout, and then maybe I'll call a guy or do whatever, and then I'll come back in the office, and then I'm like, all right, reset,
and then it works, right?
again. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm like,
no, it works, and it keeps you. And it keeps you from running out of like the half-life of the glucose will go longer if you're not plowing. If you take those pauses, you will be able to sustain like higher level executive functioning and decisions and impulse control longer throughout the day. If you plow, it runs out much, much, much faster. And so you can sustain it. And then you have a better chance of not, like eating all the Girl Scout cookies.
I'm gonna go back again, right? So remember that not boring job that she told us about in the beginning of the episode?
Yeah.
And we're here now. I'm still saying, man, she was in rat's brains because she is way too into neuroscience. And I'm pretty sure there's some dude out there right now shaking.
Nope. I'm just a
little
nerd
pill,
through and through.
A little LSD. Let's just see how you feel.
Let's see.
Yeah,
how does that make you feel?
Yeah.
All right.
I wish. No, you know what I had to do? Honest to God, so I would tell people that I was on this side of the mirror. I would say, I'm right there. I'll be recording. Like, while you go, if you need anything, just signal or whatever. They had to do this test for an hour. And every 5 minutes, I would have to write down like what they were doing. Honest to God, despite the fact that I had told them, they'd be sitting there. They would like 3 knuckles up, pick their nose. They would touch themselves. I mean, like and I would have to, and I wasn't allowed to do it. So I had to be like, 237, like
again,
repositioning again.
I told you I was here. And they're 3 knuckles deep.
I know. It was I wanted to be like, dude, tap, tap, tap. I'm right here.
Still here.
Yeah. Still here.
Like I told you. Still here.
Yep.
I told you I was going to be there. Did you think I wasn't? You forgot.
No.
You forgot.
But it was an attention. So very funny. My son, who everybody in my family has ADD, and as well as dyslexia and a few other fun things, which is why I use metaphor so much, interestingly. But my son was getting his testing done so he could get accommodations at school. And I picked him up and I was like, oh, what was the one they took you into the other room for? And he goes, oh, they had it was just this square. And he goes to describe the test that I had done. It was like, it's this square. And then you have to press whether it's a smaller or larger square. And it is, as the first one, it's so boring because it is meant to push your ability to pay attention and make it really hard. I said, oh, did you have to really struggle to do that one? He goes, I don't know. They had these really cool paintings on the wall. And I was like, oh,
who gave him that test?
I said, you fit. No, we had to have testing done to get into the school that he went to.
All right. And they gave him the boredom test.
Because they're literally testing your ability to maintain attention on something that is not stimulating.
You wouldn't have gotten into that school.
I think I would have noticed.
Oh, no. Oh, you're missing the point of this school. This is a school for kids who are really smart, but have language-based learning issues and ADD. So actually performing poorly on that test helps you get into that school.
Oh,
nice.
Great school. Great.
So how many kids you got?
2.
Yeah. How old are they?
My son's 21. He's a junior, and my daughter's 17, senior in high school.
Oh boy. Exciting times.
Last year. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's a great
year.
age. Yep. That's a lot of excitement. I love that. Okay. So 17, 21, you started the business when they were young as well. So they only know you as Mom, the entrepreneur, doing this whole thing. Yeah.
Yes. And they are not at all impressed by it. And their favorite phrase is, not everything's a life lesson, Mom. So
Nice. Well,
Yeah.
my daughter, who is 25, is famous on our podcast, and we have a new one. And my new one, let me look this up because we're going to make t-shirts out of my daughter's thing.
Priceless.
She
We need to have her as a guest one of these
she
days.
is on a roll. So she's in physician assistant school. She just went back to school after working and living at home with us, saving money. And that was the conversation. I'm like, how much did you save? And she said, here it is. It's your fault for not taking it out of my checking account.
Wow.
Oh, interesting.
There she goes. That's her.
Interesting.
Yeah. So this is the one who told me one night, she goes, Dad, what are we having for dinner? I said, leftovers. She goes, do better.
Do better.
Do
Oh,
better.
it
What
sounds
do
like
they-
she and my daughter would get along pretty well. So.
Yeah. Love kids. But
Yeah.
you know, that makes it all go around. One thing I want to go back to this, because if you're listening to this and you're thinking, man, I'm going to be a leadership coach. I'm going to be just like Jodi, who's an OG, but you know, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to leap off. The one thing that I think is very interesting is that people don't get it in coaching. People just don't line up at your doorstep for a lot of coaches
Oh,
who have never
no.
done it. You got to go
No,
out there and
no.
market yourself. You got to
Yeah.
hit podcasts like these clowns you're talking to today. You got to go out there and keep putting your shingle out there. How do you keep your coffers filled? How do you do it?
Yeah, so I can tell you what worked for me. I've seen a lot of people in the past 10 years do extremely well with like online marketing, classes, online masterminds and whatnot. I built my practice the old-fashioned networking, referral, word of mouth way, and I have tried there are times where I invested in a person or a mastermind or whatever to make that leap. It is just not what works for me. And I think the best business advice I ever got, and I always just come back to this when I am most confused, is do more of what works. Just do more of what works and stop trying to reinvent the wheel and figure out some like faster, better way of, well, it can be faster or better, but not being seduced into thinking you need some newfangled way of doing something. Sometimes you do, it can be beneficial, but
How, in your week, how much are you spending finding new clients, talking to new clients, or, you know, putting those out there, marketing, advertising? How much are you coaching?
So let me answer the first question first, because it's a little bit different with the way I run the practice now. It's hard for me to answer the second part, but I'll explain why in a second. So I've pulled in the past few months, I have been actually working with, I have a marketing person who's helping me so that I can expand my reach beyond the local area, because I do want to work with more startup founders, and there are only so many here in Baltimore. So that is the one and only in these 20 years. That is the only time I have done in the last 4 months, any kind of deliberate marketing. I figured out very early on that the best thing I could do was put myself in places where people would have an opportunity, formally or informally, to hear the questions I ask, the way I think things through, the way my brain works. And if I did that, I didn't have to explain what I did, because they would just get it. And so one of the things I did was I joined a Vistage group, because it was business owners, and they were all service providers like me of different kinds, not the big CEO group. And I literally would have dudes in that group say, I still don't get what you do, but I feel like you could be helpful with this for either them or a client of theirs. And 100% of the time, I'm like, that is exactly what I don't know why you keep saying you don't understand what I do. They couldn't put words to it. I didn't have a handy tagline. I never have. And you can spend hours and months, trying to get your website right, or the perfect tagline, or the perfect marketing copy. And at least if you're doing a business where you are the product, then just putting yourself out there, and so people can experience it, and then you don't have to explain it to them. And that's the only thing I've ever done. I just spend more time with the people that really get me and who are also talkers. I mean, I think that's another key thing if you're trying to grow a business, is there are,
Yep.
I think Seth Godin calls them sneezers, like people who love to refer and spread your name around. And so I always had like one or two of those at any given time. I would have someone who just seemed to
I think that's the
constantly
gold
send me
nugget for
referrals.
any business you're in. People
Yeah.
buy from people. They don't buy from
Yes.
businesses, right? I go to Walmart only because it's the absolute lowest cost last alternative for me. I hate going in there because the relationship's not there. But I will
So
go
much
to my,
for their sponsorship.
well, Walmart's not.
Scorched earth on
Well,
that
they're
one,
out.
Chris. Nice.
It's good. Thanks a lot.
But hey,
Yeah, no,
Jeff
you're
Bezos,
absolutely right.
by the way, in Amazon, I think you guys are so good. So don't forget to sponsor the Small Business Safari.
Right.
Jeff Bezos, come here.
But to your point, especially in home services, like yes, I know it can be important to do Google search ads and whatnot. That is sometimes how people find things. But 9 times out of 10, for most of us, it's like, have you had a roofer that you know? Because there's no way to test it out. And these things really matter. And it's a lot of money and you care about how it goes. So anything where you care how it goes and you have a pretty high stake in it, most people are going to ask around that's why that's one of the reasons next
I'm in
exists.
commercial
Next door,
real
yeah.
estate, and it's the exact same thing. I mean, we have a
Yes.
website just to validate. Once we meet somebody, they're like, well, I'll
Mhm.
check them out on their website, but we don't really want business from our website.
I have found that when people have found me through some completely random way, um, it's the likelihood that it's a good fit. Which by the way, I just did a video about this because I heard this lady on the On Being podcast talk about survival of the fittest. She said the word that Darwin was talking about, we think of survival as the fittest as like the strongest, the most dominant, who would eat the others kind of a thing. And while there is some aspect to that it's true, it is survival of the fit, the best fit to the environment, the fittest, the one that can fit the best. And fit is so important in business. When they're not the right fit, it's not going to work out. Even if you're being paid a bunch of money, it's either not going to be worth it, or it will cost you that much to service them because it's not the right fit. Whereas when I get a referral, especially from one of my like super core, there's one woman who every time she mentions me to somebody, I barely am able even to get through the sales call. They're like, right, how much can you just send me the thing?
Sign
Like
me
they're
up, let's go.
sold
Because you're
before they're
referred
even
with an
on.
endorsement, and they're like, done,
Oh,
right? I love
yeah,
that
they've
she
already
posted-
decided.
She brings up the Darwin. So, we all studied Darwin in school because we all had to, right? But my favorite thing has been since social media has been out, even before social media, they have the
Yes.
Darwin Awards. Come on.
It's brilliant.
I-
No,
So
my
I don't wanna- I
family
don't
has
wanna
a
segue
very
there, 'cause
dark sense of humor, and we love those Darwin
the
Awards.
first one I ever heard was the lawyer every year told every one of his new first year lawyers, the one else going in, he would do this thing saying, this is what we're about in law school. And he would jump into a glass in a high rise building and show them that it was strong enough, right? Well, one year it just didn't go, and out the door he went.
Oh
This
my
is back
God.
in this is back in 1998, 99. So the Darwin Awards, again, back no internet at the time, right? But I had that one presented and I was like, oh, that's BS, right? And so now they're all out there. They've been doing it every year, like tipping over the Coke machine, boom, drops the kid. So anyway, I don't want to, but I did. I went there. Dark sense of humor. I love it. But that's a great point. Survival of the fit.
Yeah.
And we're coming to the end here. I know I want to keep going. So, Jodi, have you worked with a lot of people, you get all those people in, where do you feel like you've had the most success? Where do you go, man, I feel really good about this guy? Give us a story. Don't just tell us about in general.
So I have NDAs with a good number of my clients. So I will tell you sort of a generalized story about
All right,
this is a very specific person.
Let's call him Mouse.
I was going to say Steve.
Perfect.
Oh, Steve?
Yeah.
All right, Steve.
That's really funny because whenever I want to reference like my fake client, when I want to reference somebody, I'll be like, so Steve said to me, and if I want to reference a woman, I say Megan. I don't know why I pick Steve and Megan as I am. And I have no Steve or Megan clients. So
very
that
interesting.
works out really well.
I actually know else. Go ahead.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. Part of the reason that I also just stepped away from marketing, this is related to your question, is that it is really hard to describe the work. And so what's interesting is this kind of goes back to your last question. The reason I can't answer what like how many hours a week I am coaching is because what I have shifted is I do everything on call now. They are paying me to be available like sooner. I still have some scheduled clients. So I absolutely have things scheduled on my calendar, but I cannot and never wanted to. And this leads to what's my like really favorite thing about business there is have like a packed 9 to 6, boom, 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 especially since by the end of the day, you'd not be getting the best of me. And so I'm not spending a lot of hours. I am, however, available to these people. And this is the thing that's what shifted my business the most was even though that was like a weird need that no one had articulated before, and there weren't 20 of them out there. So it made the marketing a little harder. But I knew deeply that is what people needed. They needed somebody in the moment when they had a problem, not every third Tuesday or whatever. So, but back to the client success story. So these folks often don't have people to talk to. And when they don't have people to talk to, because there's a million reasons there's stories that they can't tell, they're confidential, or all the reasons in leadership. And then they get stuck in their head. And so very specifically, the first person that I worked with to work out this like on-call thing, she decided to beta test it with me because part of what she wanted, so we'll call her Megan. I decided to tell a different one.
It's Megan.
Megan.
Megan. Well, actually, let's call her Steve. That works too.
Okay. Stevie.
Stevie. What's great about it? So she said, I don't want to. This is an emotional roller coaster sometimes, and I don't want it. I can't take all that back to my team. I can't go in one day and be like, oh my God, the sky is falling. And then tomorrow be like, everything's great. She's like, I need to be able to be clear about expectations. And there are times where she's like, I just need to burn off some of the energy of a thing before I go and deal with the team. And so the reason that this goes back to the marketing thing I was saying a second ago that I got a little off track about, it is really hard for me to cite outcomes or like results, because almost like counterterrorism, a lot of what the work I do with people keeps them from going off the rails or making bad decisions, or so it prevents burnout. It prevents a lot of turnover because they're giving like stress burns to everybody in the office. Like I am watching them for it's like channeling hydropower to get a CEO or a founder to be doing everything they can do. And some of that's egging them on, but some of it's also slowing them down or making them rest or renew so that they can sustainably keep it up. So I keep a lot of things from happening, but it's very hard to talk about results in terms of like.
No, I love it. Actually,
Yeah,
so today, everybody, you should thank yourself. You're probably listening on this podcast in your car, driving around. Hey, road rage just didn't happen, and somebody didn't pull a gun on you because Jodi's out there helping people, right?
Mhm.
So next time you want to flip the bird at somebody, slow it down, bro. Bring it back, because Jodi might not be there helping that guy through the fact. But I think I know her. So her company is called At the Core, but I really think she's a concierge decision coach.
I'm thinking
I like that.
a life coach / business coach, because if she helps you be the best you, then you're going to be the best leader.
I still like mine concierge decision coach. I win.
Okay, fine.
All right, guys, we're coming to the end of this thing. I know you guys want to listen. Thanks for hanging out with us. We're still doing it. All right, Jodi, how do people find you? Let's put it out there. And I've heard there might be a little benefit for hanging around, and we're going to put this in our show notes. So, Jodi, hit us up.
So you can read all about me at atthecore.com. You can also find a bunch of like free content on all my social media kinds of things. You can look there. But if you go to atthecore.com/safari, there will be at least one of the sessions I offer, maybe two of them. I'm trying to decide on that. That will be at a pretty steeply discounted. I'm talking like
come on,
60%. Yeah. Yeah.
Jodi,
we want
do
both.
two.
Well,
Do two.
Okay. I'll do two of them.
Oh my God. Alan just got her in. Guys, you need to go check this out. I mean, seriously, I'm listening to this thing. I'm thinking it myself. You're right. We all need decision coaches. We all need help with this stuff. But Jodi, we can't not get out of here without asking our favorite 4 questions. What is a book you'd recommend to everybody out there listening?
One of my favorite books, actually have it right here. It's called Winning with Accountability, The Secret Language of High Performance Organizations. And what is cool about this is 3 things, actually. It's tiny. It's very big text, so you could like literally read it like on the toilet.
She's holding it up, and the title's longer than the book.
No, the title's very long, but it's a fast read. But here's why it's important. There's a million business books that are great. I could give you a list of 100. But what I love about this is it talks about if you get frustrated getting people to do what you want, which a great number of my calls are about frustration with people stuff. This book doesn't talk about accountability from an after-the-fact punitive measure, which is typically how people talk about accountability, and that's actually not super effective.
So your chapter is the well-placed F-bomb. That's how you deal with it, right?
In my book, yeah,
right.
The well-placed F-bomb. Yeah. What the F were you thinking?
Yeah,
accountability.
And you know what? For some people, maybe that works, but a lot of doesn't. So this talks about accountability in a very easy to digest way as something you do in front. Like, how do we set ourselves up so that we don't go off the rails in the first place? And it's just got some really great things that you can easily implement. It's not a big, heady theoretical book. And I've seen it do some like really serious work in organizations to keep them from getting off track in the first place, which
Dig
limits.
it. Easy read, people. Easy read.
Yeah.
That's if you're listening to the podcast and we know who you are, you guys all hit us up during the week. Well, hit me up, and Ellen loves that. That I get hit up at least once a week from one of our listeners about a question.
So cool.
It is cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. I love that we're hitting people and making it happen. So check this one out. This one seems like one that actually even I would read. Whoa, look out.
Because it's
not
so
Dr.
short. There's
Seuss.
no pictures.
There's some pictures.
Oh,
There's
I
Oh,
pictures.
thank God.
even
Oh,
better.
then I'm totally
You
in.
could color.
I
Yeah,
could do
you
that.
could
I could
totally
color.
You
read.
color during your little
Yeah.
breaks that
I
you
am
take
a
throughout the day.
snowflake. I need to color my coloring book. All right, let's go. Favorite feature of your home.
Oh, so this was a complete gut reno, like everything. The only things we left were the floors. Actually, on one floor of the floor, we had to take out the lower ones as well. And both floors of this house had a double-sided fireplace. And we opened up everything else. So there are these two double-sided fireplaces, and they're just like the best thing ever. We do also have the tallest Dawn redwoods in Maryland and are right outside our window in our backyard. We have a very cool backyard, but that's not the house itself. So
How old was the house?
it was like a 1954 house.
Nice.
So, but it had
wood burning
had
or
some
gas?
issues.
What'd you guys do?
So they were wood burning. We actually put gas in the lower level where the kids like play. So that's like a gas one. We didn't want them starting fires down there.
Yeah, right. I know the feeling.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do.
Mostly me. No, I'm kidding. All right. So when you're out and you're the customer, we are really big into customer because we're customer service
Freaks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
What is a customer service pet peeve of yours?
My biggest customer service pet peeve is when, because it's so inane, is when places want to do surveys, like the like, how was your experience? And they make the internal decision that like anything besides a 5 is failing, like those kinds of setups, because then you're not actually wanting feedback from people. It's like, then it becomes this like psychological manipulation game. If anything besides 5 is failing, then don't have 5, just have 2, because the only thing you're going to find out is whether or not the person who took the survey home and filled it out is compliant or not with what you told them were the instructions. It's a test of compliance. It's not a feedback survey. And it makes me irate.
Oh, she's hit me at the core on this one. I would say the best
But
question.
you have to know that though.
I think
No, they tell you. They tell
Oh,
you, because
really?
this is the whole thing. I won't
If
go
you
to-
can't give us a 5, let us know, kind of a thing.
Well, that's what we do in our business. I mean, because I'm all about the Google reviews. But
So you
she's
just want to
right.
know if I'm compliant. You
I
don't really
do.
care.
Right.
No, I really don't. But
No.
she's right,
But see,
'cause I had
that
somebody
has
say-
a purpose.
I had
Your
somebody say,
purpose,
you guys were awesome. You did the best work ever. 4. I was like,
right?
I'm going to call her. I'm like, I was pissed. And they're like, well, Chris, we got a 4. I'm like, she gave me a 4, but she said how awesome we were.
Right.
Well,
But
yeah.
keep in mind, the Google reviews are not for you to get feedback. I mean, it's great that you get some. People do Google reviews for social proof. So that is the purpose. The purpose is social proof. Don't pretend it's really to be exclusively a review. So when they send you home with that thing, this is why you have to be careful about any kind of incentive programs that you put, because human beings are like lab rats. We push whatever lever we know to get the cheese. And it's so easy to incentivize the wrong behavior. And so when people know that if they don't get 5, it's failure, they will tell people like, here's the thing, but just so you know, anything besides 5 is a failure. Well, now
I will say right now in our world, it's either 5 or 1.
Right.
there's no 4.
But I think the most
so
important
then why do we
question
even
for
have 4? Yeah.
your
right.
feedback
We,
is
we haven't. The last 4 I got literally was in 2019. So since COVID, it's 5 or 1. Here's the best question you can ask anybody in any business. Would you refer me to your
That's
friends?
exactly what I was going to say
Right.
before
Is
you
that
rolled over
what do they
me,
call
but
that?
yeah.
The NS.
That's okay. We're on the same
Nets-
page.
Nets
Right?
Something
Yeah.
score. It's good.
Huh?
Yeah.
We've been together for 2 years.
I know. Are we finishing each other's sentences now?
Oh my God.
Oh, it's so cute.
Podcast
Look at you
nerd.
two.
Oh, pinky swears. Okay.
Pinky swears.
All right.
All right.
We still have
fifth one.
question B.
Give us a DIY nightmare story, not a contractor one, because I have plenty of those.
Yeah.
You
we
fell off the
we
ladder.
almost lost everything on this house. So my like I grew up doing manual labor, power tools from a very early age, so I find this story so embarrassing. I went downstairs to get the staple gun, and I don't know if you've seen these like new plastic fancy black and orange ones like they sell. They're not metal, like a standard staple gun. And I knew that we had 2 staple guns and that one of them wasn't working towards the end of the last time and one wasn't. So I took it the way you always handle it, and I went like this to see if it would pop out a staple the way that it normally goes.
She's pointing it away from her.
No, pointing away from her, but I pressed it the other part against my hand. Anyway, these other kinds that they made for a while are angled the opposite way. You know how staple guns are like they're short on one end and like tall on the other. These, for some reason, are the other way. So I staple gunned right into the palm of my hand.
Nice. Staple gun in the
Excellent
palm of your hand.
Straight
I
into the
would
palm
love
of
to
my
tell
hand.
you, I've never done something like that, but we we say in our business, it's the hand clamp, right? When you're doing trim work and you're shooting a nail.
Yep.
I can tell you can't see this, but there's been plenty of ones that have hit off the bone through the nail, and I got my finger and my hand is actually into the trim.
Stapled yourself to the house.
I have to pull myself
You're
off.
like, now I live here.
Yeah. Oh my God.
My favorite thing about that staple gun story, though, is that because I have a Facebook post about it that reminds me of it every now and then, is that morning something like reasonably grandiose had happened for me in my business. Like an interview had been published somewhere, or like, I don't know what it was, but I remember that I was like strutting. I was like, check
Look
me
at
out.
me.
I'm like, I've arrived. And then like 3 hours later, I staple gunned my own hand. And I was like, all right, the days have highs and they
Big
have
shot.
lows. Like
That's
such a big
awesome.
shot. And I just staple gunned my own hand. So
Well, Jodi, this has been a blast. We've loved having you come on. I know Small Business Safari team has figured some stuff out, Raymond.
Yeah, I think that they're going to be less likely to make terrible decisions.
I love it.
Yeah.
So if
Good
you
luck
didn't
with
learn
that.
something today, that's on you, man. Hopefully you guys listened up. Hit me up on some emails. Tell me a little bit more about what's going on with your life. Love to talk to you. You know I will, because I've talked to a number of you guys. So go up and do it. Let's keep going up that mountaintop. Let's make it all happen. We're out of here.
Cheers, everybody. Thanks, Jodi.